For hundreds of years, the Pope ruled over a large swath of territory in the central part of the Italian peninsula known as the Papal States. The territory was given to Pope Stephen II by the Frankish Emperor of Europe, Charlemagne, and would exist throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance period. The Pope, being the head of the Catholic Church, obviously played a major role in political and religious affairs throughout Europe, yet today the Pope only controls just over 100 acres of land in Rome known as the Vatican City. So what happened to the Papal States, and how did such a powerful figure like the Pope lose his vast territory? One thing that is important to note is there were numerous points in history when the Papal States were conquered and occupied by foreign entities, like in 1527 when the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V invaded the Papal States and sacked Rome while holding Pope Clement VII prisoner for 6 months, and during the Napoleonic Wars, the Papal States would fall to Napoleon, with the French Emperor establishing a new unified Italian kingdom as a part of the Greater French Empire. And yet, despite those events, the Papal States lasted until 1870. So what happened, and why was this time different? For starters, the early 18th century saw a massive philosophical movement known as the Enlightenment, with one of the core tenets being the idea that secular government should rule over the people rather than a theocratic state. Along with that, the idea of nationalism, the belief a culturally identical people group should be united, began to emerge. There had always been a vision for a unified Italian peninsula, with several attempts such as the aforementioned Napoleonic Kingdom, but the nationalist movements of the Italian peoples of the various countries that existed on the peninsula began to spread, leading to widespread support for a unified Italian state similar to what was happening in Germany at the same time. This put the Papal States in a precarious position, as it was both theocratic and unified on the basis of religion rather than nationality. Another factor was that since the Napoleonic Wars, the Papal States had begun to generally decline, in part due to several conservative popes who refused to embrace modern technology, leaving the Papal States backwards compared to the rest of Europe. The final pope to rule over the Papal States was Giovanni Ferretti, who became Pope Pius IX, who ironically started off as a liberal, but after the revolutions of 1848 and the assassination of his prime minister, he took a conservative turn. This energized nationalists and led to the support of the Kingdom of Sardinia's conquest, led by radical nationalist Giuseppe Garibaldi. Eventually, the Kingdom of Sardinia would conquer the Papal States and unify Italy for the first time since Napoleon had done so over a half-century earlier. Pius IX would then excommunicate the new King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel II, refuse to recognize the unified Italian state, establish a papal bull which forbade Catholics from participating in Italian elections, and declared himself as a prisoner of the Vatican. Pius and his successors would remain as prisoners of the Vatican and technically people of no country until 1929, with the Lateran Treaty between Pope Pius XI and Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, which gave the small area sovereignty to be ruled by the Pope. So why were the Papal States dissolved only in 1870 and not prior? For one, during the Middle Ages, monarchs typically drew their authority from the Pope, such as the Holy Roman Emperor, and as such, the Pope was meant to be above all other men on earth, meaning they could not be a part of a kingdom ruled by someone else, and likewise, the Pope could threaten to strip the legitimacy from the rulers. As for why the Napoleonic Kingdom was dissolved, the Congress of Vienna generally wanted to return Europe to a pre-Napoleonic status quo, which included returning the Papal States to the Pope. By 1870, however, many Italians accepted the notion a monarch or government should rule over the people based on a secular constitution rather than the will of the Pope, and likewise embraced nationalism, and there was no continent-wide convention to save the Pope this time. There were nations that did oppose the unification, such as Austria, which maintained the traditional view of the papacy, as well as the fear that nationalist movements in one nation could lead to nationalist movements in their ethnically diverse empire. In the end, though, the Papal States would fall once and for all. What do you guys think? Was it better for the Papal States to be dissolved, or should Italy restore it? Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.